I'm so small over here. Hang on. Let's try to fix that. There we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Global Hack Week stream. How are you? How are things going? Yeah, feel free to let us know. Can I actually leave a little um, soundtrack going in the back? If it doesn't get too public. This is New Falls 6-7. Hopefully it's pretty good. Okay. So, yeah, today we're getting ready for Taipy. The audience is excited for Taipy. Sure. Anybody ever heard of Taipy? Maybe you want to just give me a shout out. Let me know that you go. Try and get the slides going. Let's see if we can get those slides going. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Taipy, which is a really great package that you can use in Python. The goal of Taipy is really to help you visualize your machine learning algorithms and anything else that you build in Python that needs data visualization. So we'll discuss that a little bit today. But first, I want to make sure that everybody checks into the event. So definitely give us a check-in here. And let me paste the check-in link so that you all have that as well. And so mainly the reason we paste this check-in link every stream, you might be wondering, why is this something that happens every stream? It's because we want to, get to know you a little bit better and get to know your interests. And so the check-in data really helps us with that because it tells us what kinds of streams you'd like to see. It also can help get you some swag. So if you love swag, you might be in business. Check-in link. We sometimes send out stickers. We also sometimes send out even T-shirts sometimes, other special swags. But those are all limited editions, so it doesn't happen all the time. But if you check in, you never know what kind of swag we'll send you. Okay, we usually send, I'll just say, we usually send swag to those people who check into the more. So if you really want a good chance to get a lot of swag, check into a decent. I'm gonna leave this up for a minute. I can hear your background. So fix that. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. I just wanted to fix some background noise that we were getting. So hopefully that's sounding a little bit better to you now. But yeah, definitely don't forget to check in for the event today. And I was just saying that it's a great way to get swag. It's also a great way to let us know who's interested in what workshops and at what times of the day. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna try to introduce myself now. So my name is Stephen, and just a little bit about me. I've been a Major League Hacking coach for quite a long time. I started in hackathons in, let's say, the late 2010s, so pretty much 2016, 2017. And now I've been in this business since, well, up until now. So it's really a great place to be. And I'm really excited to be here with you all. I think hackathons are undergoing an amazing change right now. And so is Global Hack Week and everything, really, because of the influence of AI. And we're going to learn a little bit about machine learning and AI today. One of the interesting things I saw this morning, I don't know if any of you saw, but there was an announcement from, let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah, so here's the announcement. Maybe you all can see that. Yeah, there was this thing launched called OpenAI Codex, which is an AI system that can translate natural language to code. I'm gonna show you all a little bit about it today, while we try to use our Taipy system. So that'll be a nice thing for us to look forward to. And yeah, I'll show you just a little bit. Let's try this. Let's check it out. So they show you how you can have the system build a program for you. It's really similar to, I mean, there's a lot of these types of products now that let you modify files in a directory and build projects without even having to do it yourself, essentially. It'll write the code and execute. So yeah, that's just kind of one thing I wanted to show you all. And we'll get into that a little bit today. But just wanted to first ask a quick survey to get to know all of you a little bit better. So I'll put that in the chat. If you would, please go ahead and fill that out. You should have access, and it'll basically take you to the form. Let me try this on my own. See if I can get it to work. Oh yeah, I got it to work, so I'll fill it out myself. All right, so we'll just leave this on the screen for about 30 seconds while you all fill it out. It's pretty quick. It doesn't take very long to fill it out. So I think it'll be straightforward. I'm really curious to see your answers, though. In case you didn't notice, I have some new flavor of soda today. It's called Sprite Cherry Lime. Now, don't endorse having this soda all the time, but sometimes it can be a nice treat, and if you're allowed to have some, sometimes parents might not want you to, but the cherry lime is a good one to try. I really liked it. I don't know if any of you have tried any of the Sprite flavors. Always good to drink water too when you have some soda. Helps you clear it away from your teeth. All right, so let's see if we got any responses to this survey. I'm always curious to see how many people responded. Oh wow, we got quite a few. Let's take a look. So we got, have you heard of data visualization? Got 85% of you said yes. Awesome. So I won't have to explain that too much. That's great. And then this question here, have you built a data visualization before? Actually, more than half of you said no. So this is a really key skill that I think you could potentially benefit from. And we're going to learn how to build them today. So by the end of the workshop, this whole circle should be blue. And then have you heard of Taipy? Most people said no to that as well. That was a very strongly no. So Yeah, definitely something we can talk about today. And then have you heard of clustering algorithms? Also a lot of no's, so we'll talk about that today too. A lot of new ground to cover, which is great. And then here's our global hack week world map. I always like to see, where are people logging in from around the world, because it's such a great community we have. It's such a global community that we have. It's definitely worth asking and just seeing. So looks like today we mostly have hackers from North America and Asia, which makes sense because it will be pretty late at night right now in Europe. Let's see what time it is in Berlin. Okay, so right now it's 2 o'clock in Berlin. So if you are joining from Berlin, definitely get some rest, unless this is a normal time for you to be online. I don't know, but 2 a.m. is pretty late for me. So okay, let's move on to our next slide then, and we're going to get set up with our coding environment. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I know a lot of you probably by this day, it's already day 5, day 6, day 7. These days you start to have the coding environment set up, but I'll just put that link in the chat for you to have a look. And yeah, we're gonna download that Visual Studio Code environment. You can see it's available for basically any of these operating systems, so it should work for you no matter what kind of desktop you're joining from. I'm not sure if there's a mobile version though of Visual Studio Code. If anyone knows, let me know in the chat. That would be pretty sick if you could do Visual Studio Code on your phone from wherever you were. But yeah, okay, so let's try and now move on from this, because again, I don't want to spend too much time on this part. So I'm going to assume that you actually have Visual Studio Code installed already. And so let me show you what that looks like in practice. I'm going to open up a VS Code window here. Let's see. Okay, so you'll see a couple of projects that I've been playing with, mostly Global Hack Week stuff, hackathon stuff. But we're going to actually today try to that new file command. So by the way, if you want access to these slides, I usually post them. So let me try to post them right now. Usually make a QR code for us. Okay, let's see here. Here it is. So in that bottom right corner, you should be able to access the slides for this presentation. So definitely take advantage of that. Take a picture, take a screenshot. It'll help you get the slides. I'll also paste the actual link to these in the comments, but sometimes QR code is easier, which is why I decided to put that too. But yeah, so we'll go into VS Code and we'll hit this new file button, just like we asked. And it's going to ask you what kind of file. Oh, I do not have access to the file. Okay, sorry about that. Change the permissions here. I bet it's a permissions problem. All right, should work now. So why don't you give it a shot? Okay, sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know though, folks. So you should be able to see it now, but and I do see a few people starting to join, which is great. But right now we're actually on slide 6, which is to get a new file going. So we're going to build a Python file. New file, Python file. You can see we get this untitled file here. I actually have Copilot installed, which is why it gives me this message to ask Copilot to help. Oh, great. Glad it works. Thanks for letting me know about that. Really, really helpful when you all let me know if something's wrong or if there's something, you know, some issue happening. But yeah, so we'll select Python file. And before we keep going, the next step is to check our terminal. So we're gonna open up our terminal in the bottom. If you didn't see how I did that, I'll type it in the chat. You go to terminal in the top bar and then new terminal. So that's the command you use to get that going. Let's try some new music so it doesn't get too repetitive. I like that. I like that quite a bit. We'll try to play with the music a little bit so that things stay interesting. But yeah, so right now what we're doing is we're actually checking the Python version. So we're just making sure we have Python installed. So when you type this command, Python --version, it actually helps you get the version of Python you're currently installed. And it basically verifies that Python's working, right? So it looks like ours is working. Please let me know if yours is not working. But hopefully it will be. And remember, it must be between Python 3.8 and 3.11. All right, so the next step is going to be to make sure we have all of our dependencies installed. So the first dependency is something called torch. It's really important for Taipy to be able to run. So I'm going to paste that into the chat there. So we'll first install torch. It says it's already satisfied for me, but for you, it might say something different. So definitely try to give that a shot and see if it works. And then we'll also do pip install transformers. And it says that already was installed for me too. So if you want, you can actually do pip list. Okay, so pip install transformers is the other one. But if you want, you can type pip list into your terminal, and it'll actually tell you all of the different dependencies that are installed. So all these things are just like random stuff that got, you know, some of it's stuff that I installed myself, some of it's stuff that was just like randomly installed by, you know, whatever package I needed. It'll install all the dependencies. But you want to verify that it has torch and transformers in there. Okay. So now we're going to do our big install. Okay. So this is the big kahuna here, as I say. And you're going to do pip install Taipy. Okay. So it already worked for me, but I'll type that command in the chat in case you didn't see it. It's called pip install Taipy. Okay. So yeah, this is a really, important step for, whenever you're dealing with a project. You want to make sure you have all of your dependencies installed before you start working. Okay, so ggrossv says, I don't have pip. So another thing I'll ask you to try is try doing pip3. Okay, so instead of saying pip, just transfer to pip3. So for example, you would say pip3 install torch. Sometimes that'll work better. Let me know if that fixes your problem. If not, you might not have Python installed. There could be a bunch of different problems. You could ask ChatGPT also. ChatGPT might be able to help you troubleshoot if you know how to do that. But definitely let me know if anything works. Oh, yeah, nice. Glad that worked. That's basically my easiest trick, the best one for me. Yeah, if that didn't work, it would have been much worse. Okay, so all right, we're gonna move on now and make sure we have our extension installed. So one of the reasons why we use VS Code is because we're actually interested in making sure that the extensions are installed for it. So you can click on this puzzle piece on the left hand side here, and that you can install Taipy. Eventually it'll look like this. So you have a little T on the left hand side. So I have that because I've prepared this workshop and got the Taipy installed. But you'll want to click on this, and then once you search in the market, you should look for something called Taipy. And so it's called Taipy Studio. And you're going to want to basically make sure that's installed. And I have it on auto update. You probably want to turn that on so that anything that gets installed is, it's ready for you to go. But yeah, Torch version to use. Good question. Let's actually have a look at their documentation to see. So I don't think it's I don't think there's any specific one to use, but let's have a look and see. Okay, so usually I'll go to like the documentation page for stuff like this. And if we have a look at their user manual, that's probably what we need. So here you can see Taipy is supported on these different versions. So that's why I mentioned you've got to make sure that version is right. So it's between 3.8 and 3.11 now. I guess it's not even supporting 3.8 anymore, but that's one thing. And then let's try configuration. Yeah, that's not right either. Maybe it's on their GitHub. This is another good place to look for it. Installation guide. Okay, so it looks like you can just straight up install Taipy. So maybe just try to straight up install Taipy. I think the latest version of Torch, should be what we use. I don't think there's any restriction because I'm not seeing anything in their documentation. So really good question. Okay, so if you got a virtual environment error, maybe just try to install Taipy instead of going through all of this other stuff. Yeah. Okay, so the next step, of course, is to install this this Taipy extension in the Visual Studio Code extension store. So make sure that you have that downloaded. I'm just going to pause here because I can tell we're getting a few questions, and I want to make sure that everybody gets up to speed. So make sure that when you do pip list, you have Taipy, Torch, and transformers. Make sure that you have that T appearing on the left toolbar there. That's basically what we're looking for at this stage. And once you have those things, we're ready to rock and roll. We're basically ready to go. So that'll be great. Okay, good question. So Chief Roasty says, which Taipy extension do I pick? So you're going to want this one called Taipy Studio. Now it's going to have a lot more downloads and a lot more, a lot more reviews, but it's and the version's probably going to be higher. I think the version now is probably like 3. But look for something called Taipy Studio. It's going to have an extension pack. So there is a GUI helper and a configuration builder, and you'll probably want those too. So just pick whichever one has the most downloads, and I think that'll work out just fine. Any other questions here? All right, well, if anyone has another question, feel free to let us know. Okay, great, got it downloaded, awesome. Let us know in the chat, we're here to help, but we're gonna move on now, so in the interest of in the time. So I'm gonna talk a little first about the first Taipy scenario, okay? So this is having to do with some Taipy documentations and Taipy lingo. I'm gonna fill you in on it basically. So Taipy really is a matter of a scenario that consists of nodes and tasks. So nodes being these red arrows pointing to them. So there's name and message. Those are both nodes. It's kind of like where data is getting fed in and where it's getting read, right? Then, of course, there's also this task, which is in this little example here, is to build a message. So we're going to try to make this first Taipy scenario here, which is basically a hello world program. So before we do that, I want you all to think of your own scenario. And so I'm going to paste in the chat using these terminologies of nodes and tasks. Try to invent a simple scenario, one that you could yourself execute with the terminology of nodes and tasks and using Taipy. So try that form out and see if you can. Oh, there it goes. Yep, it worked. Amazing. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to answer it myself. I'm going to make one for Global Hack Week. So first, I'll have a node that is the hacker name. So that's maybe my name. Then the task will be to query a database, find out how many points that hacker has, and then that will be sent to the points node. So maybe it's like a visualization dashboard where you could give your hacker name and then it would tell you how many points you have for Global Hack Week. So I went ahead and submitted mine. I'll give you a minute to submit yours. While you're working on that, I'm going to try to pull up our form. See what we got going here. So far, it's just me, so I'll give maybe another 30 seconds in case anybody wants to respond. Okay, looks like we got a few additional responses here. Let's have a look. Why not, right? Okay, so here's a few. Node is a username. Task is grab the city that I live in. Yeah, definitely. That's a good one, kind of like a map. And then here's another. Nodes could be students' names and marks. And then a task could be checking to see if those marks are above 50%. Yeah, definitely. We hope those marks are above 50%. If they're below, you're in a little bit of trouble. So you want to know that, right? You want to make sure you're aware. So you could even have another task here that sends an alert, right, to the student's phone. Maybe it could grab their phone number from a phone number node and send that off, right? So that could be a really, really good idea that y'all had. And we'll code this up actually in Taipy. So I have this screenshot here. Let me move my head out of the way. But we're going to start by trying to configure this simple Taipy scenario. So let's try to get that going. And by the way, I'm going to send you all a link to the GitHub repository for this workshop so that you can have a look and see what the final codes should look like. But for now, we're going to work together to try and get this going. So let me open up VS Code again and show you all that. Here it is, my VS Code window. And I'm going to close out of this Taipy Studio thing. And maybe I'll close out of the extension store too, honestly. Don't need that right now. So again, we click New File, Python file, just in case your untitled Python code went away like mine did. And so the first thing we'll do is just import. So we're going to do an import statement here. And I'm going to do import Taipy as TP. Okay. So TP is a nice shortcut. We call this an alias in, just put this as Taipy tutorial for now. Okay. And so there's our alias for Taipy, TP, very convenient. And I'm also going to install a few other things. So we're going to install from Taipy. We're going to use from to import specific modules from Taipy, so we can just call them without having to, repeat. And so we say config and core. And you might be wondering, what is config? What is core? What are these things? I'll get into it soon. Change the music a little bit too for all of you. But first, we're gonna write a function, and it's going to be called build message. The key task block. Okay, so this is the key task block in Taipy. So we'll start with just saying build message. And this is a fine idea that Copilot has come up with to basically return hello Taipy, but we can actually return a specific thing. So I'm going to return a value from a node. And so we're going to say, let's pretend, there could be some specific string that we have as our input here. And it'll be our name. And then it'll say hello name. So instead of just building the normal hello world program, let's replace it with the name. Okay. So this task function is great, but we're going to need to build in the Taipy infrastructure to actually get this working. So first, we're going to configure the data nodes, okay? And this is where we're going to house the name and the message that are generated. So if you remember back to that diagram, the first node is known as the name. So we're going to make a new variable called input name data node config. So this is where we're going to configure that data node. and input that name. So we'll say config dot create data, or configure, excuse me, configure data node. And we'll say the ID should be the input name. And then this is basically going to serve as our name node. And then we'll put another node here. So we'll call this the message data node. And here we're just going to do the same, but we'll just call it ID equals message. And so we're labeling these nodes as the input name node and the message node. All right, so the next step is to configure that task. And you can see Copilot already suggests a little bit what we should do. But I'm going to call this the build message task config file. And so we'll configure the task. First thing we'll do is give it an ID. So we'll call it build MSG, just to save some space there. The next thing is to tell it what function it should use. So we're going to use this build message function up here in our code. Got to remember to save too. Yes, this is being recorded. GHW, we record all of our sessions. You can actually find them. I'll send the link in the chat in case, maybe you might have to leave, or if you ever, get stuck on any of this. All right, here it is. So you can have a look at that, see what you think of configure task here. No problem. Always happy to help, and thanks for being active in the stream. It's so much better to stream when we have some people in the chat talking and anything engaging, so you're awesome. Okay, now we're going to continue along with some inputs. So we have our input name data node config. That's saying what the input should be. And then the output, which is the message data node config. So this is basically configuring that task to say, what is the function? First, what is the name of this task? Second, what is the function? And then there's an input and an output. So that's how we define this task. And then the final step here is to configure the pipeline, as Copilot says, but I'm going to call it the scenario. And so we're just going to configure. I'm actually going to accept this more or less. And the only thing I'll change is that instead of needing to put all this stuff in, which we would normally have to do for a task, we actually can, I'm just going to actually call the name of this scenario, not hello scenario, but we can actually use task configs, and we can put the configs for each task in there. Okay, so we don't have to actually rewrite everything. We can just tell it, here's the tasks I want you to put in your scenario. Okay, so this pretty much wraps up the configuration step. And now I'm going to show you how to build the scenario. Okay, so we'll call this building the scenario. This next step. So let's say build the scenario. And so I'm going to use first this command, which is really common in Python and in many languages. It's basically called dunder commands. So dunder is, for example, name with double underscores here and main over here. So it's saying that if we're currently in the main file, which we are, if this is our only file, right, in the project, we're in that main file, it means we can then run some script. So we'll first start by instantiating something called core. And this is the core services of Taipy. It helps Taipy spin up a web server, get everything served from there, and get all the infrastructure ready for you to build your scenario. So we'll do core.run to get that running. Okay, and so now we're going to build a real scenario called the hello scenario. And we're going to use the create scenario method from Taipy. So we'll use tp.create scenario. And then we use scenario CFG. So remember, we're looking at this scenario CFG that we had above. Okay. And then I'm gonna, now that this this scenario is created, I'm gonna set the input name here. So I'm gonna have it write my name in, Stephen from MLH, and have it submitted. Okay, so there you go. And this is really interesting actually, because you can see a lot of Copilot's suggestions are just frankly things that do not exist in Taipy. So it's pretty funny to see that. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry to hear that, Ilya, about the fellowship. Yeah, I wish we could have brought some better news about that. Yeah, definitely encourage you to keep working, and you never know what opportunity might come your way. In fact, we're always having new batches of the fellowship, and there's a bunch of other great programs to apply to. But yeah, sorry to hear that. Okay, so let's continue. Also, feel free to message me if you on LinkedIn and connect if you want some feedback or anything like that. So I'm one of the people who reviews those fellowships. I should actually post my LinkedIn, because sometimes people like to connect with me on LinkedIn during Global Hack Week. So if anybody's interested in connecting, let me know. All right, so let's continue along. We've got our Taipy scenario built. Let's do a test. Okay, so the way we test, so we're in test mode now. Just put that up for everybody. Test mode. The way we do a test is we just click on this run here, run Python file, and it should actually do that in the terminal. Oops. So you can see we're getting quite a an output here. Oh no, it seems like it didn't quite work for us. So okay, it says we have an open SSL warning. Oh no. All right, let's see if we can get this fixed up. So it at least did print out something for us. That's not nothing. We got hello name to print out, but we wanted hello Stephen from MLH. That would have been great. So what can we do? Well, we could potentially see maybe this string is not quite formatted appropriate. I think, yeah, maybe there needs to be an F here. Let's see if that works. Okay, that was the problem. Okay, so now it says hello, Stephen from MLH. If you aren't sure what I just did, it's because I put an F here. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to open the tunnels or whatever. The F stands for format, so it'll actually format that string appropriately for us. Okay, and so now we have that up and running. We can actually see that it prints out exactly what we want. All right, so let me give a quick break here for you all to catch up and ask any questions you have. Definitely let me know, if you have any questions. And I'll try to also get the workshop test running, because we're going to do our own test. We're going to do a real test, not just a code test. So if you want to test your knowledge, we'll have this format. But I'm going to give you all a couple minutes to really think about this and get caught up. All right, folks. So it doesn't seem like we got any answers here, any quiz responses here. So I'm gonna actually go through this ourselves so that we can give the answers. So first one was name two elements that could compose a Taipy scenario, and the answers here are first nodes, right? So that's geez, good lord. Hang on, let's see if we can fix this. Okay, we did actually get one response, but I feel like I want a few more responses if we're going to go through individual responses. So, because I don't want anyone to feel too singled out by that. So, let's actually go through let's just go through them together. So, the first one is name two elements that could compose a Taipy scenario, and we could say nodes and tasks, right? So those are two of the Taipy scenario elements. And then let's consider the following code. So we have configure task, right? So there's all these different arguments here. There's build MSG, build message, input name, data node config, message data node config. So we list all the arguments, okay, that are involved in this message. For example, the first argument is that ID. So we have the ID, which is build message. We have the function, which we could call build underscore message. We have the input node configuration, which is this input name data node CFG. And then we have the output node configuration, which is going to be the message data node CFG. Okay, so those are our basic arguments here. All right, so next question, what does the following line of code accomplish where hello scenario is a Taipy scenario object? So this line of code here, it actually builds the scenario. Once you submit that, it really does build that up for you. Okay, so those are the answers to the quiz. And hopefully you were able to learn a little from that. But yeah, great job to those people who did fill it out. I just felt like if we were going to review one person's response or two people's response, that wouldn't be very nice. I think we did eventually get two responses, but we'll just forget about that for now. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask them now. We're probably going to move on to the graphical interface now. And take a sip of water. It's always good to have a little bit of water while you're up here streaming. Most of you probably don't stream on your Twitch or anything, but it's not easy all the time. All right, so graphical interface. We're going to now import our GUI, which is going to help us gain some interactivity here. Okay, so the basic idea is we're going to go into this import statement, and we're just going to add one more module to this list. So the module is called GUI. So go ahead and do that on your end too. I'm not going to switch back to my VS Code for this one. I'm just going to let you kind of fill in the blank here about GUI. So the next step is going to be to have a new variable. And this one we will actually look at together in VS Code. It's called the page variable. Now this is where we have the UI layout. So we use input, input name. We use submit button, for example. We could have a message button. So we're basically here, we're setting ourselves up to have a field where we can put our names in graphically, and then a button to submit the scenario, and then the message will display. So we should be able to dynamically adjust that hello world phrase. Let's try and implement this. We're gonna break it down first though. So first, the variable, okay, that's this first thing here, input name. And second, the type. Okay, so that's the input here. And then third, if you see circled here, we have the submit scenario task here, or scenario itself. So once you define this function, it'll work. Now we don't have it defined yet, so that's our next step. All right. And of course, we got to instantiate the variables, meaning that we're going to give them some initial values, like Adam Smith, the message. And so that's just to make sure we have a default. And we're going through a lot here. I'm realizing I'm going through a lot. So let's start by implementing this page variable into our VS Code. That seems like a good thing to try next. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my VS Code window. And you all saw we had a really successful run at it last time. We got hello, Stephen from MLH to print out. That was awesome. But next, I want to see if we can go further in this and dive a little bit deeper. So we're going to start with some GUI, building some GUI. Okay. So the next step is to make that page variable, and I'm gonna put that down here. Not before we build the scenario. Notice, or I'm sorry, yes, before building the scenario. So we use these triple quotes. Does anybody know what these triple quotes stand for in Python? Why we use triple quotations? Anybody? Come on. This is a Python thing that I bet somebody will know. Well, I'll give you a hint. It has to do with strings. So triple quote is actually when you do a multi-line string. So we can define a string over many different lines in the editor. So first we're going to have name. Okay, so this is just going to print out the word name. And then we can use these hard accent marks to delineate when we have a Taipy element coming in. So this first element is called an input element. So we write input here. Remember, if you're having trouble following along, there is a GitHub for this, so you can check GitHub to see what's up. But yeah, it should be okay. So then we'll do submit. So this is going to be a button. Oops. Sorry about that. A button that has an action associated with it. And this is going to be the submit scenario action. Okay. And then we'll have a message, which is just a text field. So basically, this is our layout of our app right now. It's a really simple app, but hopefully it can help us out a little bit here. So then the other thing we covered was actually adding some instantiation here. So instantiation, we're going to instantiate variables. Instantiation is where we basically set some defaults here. So we're going to set a default for the name, so Adam Smith, for example. And we'll just set the message to be an empty string for the moment. And that's just going to make sure that when we load the page, it just kind of has like a dummy for the field so that you know what's supposed to go there. And a message is not displayed yet because we don't want to say hello yet. We want to wait till the button is pressed. Right? And so the next thing we were going to go over, hopefully, does anyone have any questions about this, by the way, what we just did? So we instantiated the variables, we got that layout going. Maybe I'll change the music while I wait and see if any of you have any questions. I'm going to go for this orchestra beat. It's interesting. Never heard of that. Oh, maybe not. It doesn't look like it wants to play for me. Okay, there it goes. Just needed to be reloaded, I guess. All right, so let's keep going. I'm going to open up that slide deck again, show you all what we're looking at. So here it is. This is the submit functionality through a callback. And so what we're doing here is, just as it says, we're abstracting the submit functionality through a callback. So instead of just having that trigger when we write if name equals main, it will actually it will write the name dynamically, right? So it'll require that input state there, and then it'll write the name to the input name node, and then submit that scenario. And then in the outputs, it'll read that message. Okay. So the final step, of course, is to rebuild the scenario, and we're gonna have a new command here, which is our GUI, and that will just run the page. Okay, I'm gonna change the music. I don't really like this music that much. I want to change it to something better. How about Cozy Coffee House? I love that one. All right, so our Cozy Coffee House going. What else could go wrong? Nothing. So, all right. Let's go back to our VS Code editor. We're going to try to implement some of these changes here. All right, so we're going to try to implement these changes. So the first one is to abstract the we're going to abstract those submit scenario features. All right, so first, define that submit scenario with some state. And this is just stuff we saw on the slide. So we're just going to take the input name node and write the input name directly there based on the dynamic state. And then we can just do scenario.submit. And I'm going to have it read the message out and assign that to the state too. Okay, so basically it's just taking that message and reading that. Okay, and then rebuild the scenario. As far as that goes, if we scroll down, we'll see we still have that whole dunder conditional here that I explained earlier. And so we'll just say scenario, because it's not necessarily hello scenario anymore. It could have whatever state it wants. And then, yeah, maybe I can get rid of all this, right? I can get rid of all of this because it's all in the function now. It's all modularized. And instead of printing to the console, we're going to create a GUI. All right, good job, Copilot, for noticing. So we do GUI, and the argument is, as we saw, page. So that's this layout string we had earlier. And then we do run. So let's try running. Let's just try to run that. Of course, we get a syntax error. Always with the syntax error. What could be the issue with that? Okay, Okay, let's just try to get out of this, get out of those terminals, open a new one. That's probably what we need to do, honestly. Yeah, sometimes you just gotta do a little, little troubleshooting. So it says that it ran, which is good. At least it means we're getting somewhere. So we can go to this website, which is actually 127.0.0.1 is our home computer. So it means we're on the home page, which is, hey, that's good news, right? And then port 5000 means that we got somehow to this localhost port. So I'm going to share this screen with you all. By the way, let me know if you got something different or you hit an error. I want to know about that. But here's what I got when I went to that website. So it looks pretty promising, right? So let's see, we have our input name field. Now, I didn't really want it to say input name, so I'm gonna have to try and fix that. But let's say if it says Steven. Okay, didn't quite work. Oh no, but at least we got it to print out the instantiated variable, right? That's not so bad. So at least we're getting somewhere. Maybe we can have a look at this code and see what we're doing wrong. Which there must be something that we're doing wrong and just can't really tell currently. All right, I'm gonna hit back to the VS Code and we're gonna do some troubleshooting. Maybe there's a banner I can do. What emoji should I choose for the troubleshooting? Okay, we're in the troubleshooting zone here, everybody. All right. So let's try to troubleshoot here. So compared to our known working example, I think I already know where the culprit is. So if you look here, you might remember that our code automatically filled in input underscore name. And then when we submitted a new request, it just used the instantiated variable. So I think what we need to do is put curly braces around here. Because you'll notice when you put curly braces, it changes the color and it actually gives us a more generalized variable. So we'll hit save and Control C to interrupt, and we'll try to run it again. Let's see if that helped at all. 50-50 on whether it fixed the problem, frankly, but let's see. Fingers crossed, everybody. Okay, here's our browser, and you can see we got exactly what we expect, Adam Smith. So when we actually try to change our name, I'll use my name here, Stephen from MLH. I can submit. Isn't that great? I wonder, by the way, I wonder if it can accept an emoji. Let's see. No idea if this will work. Okay, it worked. Hey, that's great. So you can kind of see how this works. So this is a pretty neat way to do this. I mean, are there other ways to make a GUI? Sure. Yeah. But is there any that is this easy? Honestly, you'd be hard pressed to find one. The thing is, you've got to find a way to internalize those nodes and tasks and things, because it's not as intuitive as you might want it to be, but it definitely is a pretty good solution if you're open to it. Okay, so let's keep going here, and we can turn off our troubleshooting zone for now, at least, which is of course a good sign. We can get rid of that for now, and we can move on to the next stage. So let me throw up that slide again for all y'all. Here's the slides again. So we did this test and we got our amazing result. Hello, Stephen, or whatever your name is. You might have been able to test it out with that, but we're going to do a true test now. First a break, and then we'll have a challenge. Okay. So does anybody have any questions here? I'm just trying to take some breaks to let people catch up and try this for themselves and let me know if they get any problems or anything like that. Hey, myself a water break too. All right, no questions so far, so maybe we'll continue on with our challenge here. And hopefully we'll have enough time to check out the Codex CLI. So let's see if we can add another control to this project. Okay, so controls are the Taipy word for this type of object element that you're submitting, whether it's a text element, an input element, or a button element. So I'm going to click on this link and show you what their documentation says about this. So you can see there's a ton of available controls. There's static ones like a value here, which is just our text from our message. If you remember, there's buttons, which we have a submit button implemented right now. And then there's also our input fields where we can type some custom message. There's also a ton of things we haven't implemented yet. So there's like numbers, sliders, toggles, dates, charts, files that you could download. So, there's really a lot of stuff you can use. We're going to focus on this toggle though, implementing the toggle so that we have just one other thing to look into. And if we go back to our files here, try your best to add another. So here's the documentation for controls to get you started. Maybe we'll actually try this with Codex. I feel like this would be a really good way to test Codex out. Okay, so why don't we do that? So I'm going to show you all Codex. It was just pretty much updated today. So here it is. It's on the OpenAI repository. I just have this Codex here. And it's billed as a lightweight coding agent that runs in your terminal. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And so the way you use it is you can install it using Node Package Manager. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And it updates your files for you. You don't even have to do anything except give it a prompt. So let's give it a shot here. I'm going to actually move my file into a very special folder because I don't want to mess with the rest of my projects here. So I'm going to copy the Taipy tutorial.py into a new folder called Taipy test with Codex. See if that works. All right, so I went ahead and did that. Okay, I already have Codex installed, so it shouldn't be too hard for us to try this out. Okay, so All I do is I have to type codecs here. And I'm going to use approval mode full auto. Now, what this does is basically gives codecs the ability to edit any files it wants to in this directory. And you might see how I've defined this directory in terminal. So I've already basically let it, do what it wants to do. And so there's no dangerous files in here. So I'm going to say following folder contains a Python script with a Taipy visualization. Can you please add another control to the Taipy visualization? And what should we try to add? Does anybody have an idea of what we might want to try to add? Anything you want to test out? Curious to see. All right, I'll try it myself. So, oh, there were a lot of controls. Let's see. I wanted to show the date and somehow add that into the message it gives out to the user. That's not a bad idea. So let's hit enter here. Oh, it's missing my open API key. That's not good. Could have sworn I already put that in. Okay, well, give me 1 second. I'm going to put my open API key in. They always want your money. Okay, let's see here. Hopefully, I'm not sharing my screen and showing you all my API key. All right, I'm going to try to do this. So none of you have my, okay, it's not open. And also, there's only like $2 on there. So let's try it out. Okay, I just went ahead and put it in. Hopefully it doesn't get exposed, but if it does, I guess it's okay because, oh shoot, actually, hang on. I'm gonna get our old command back. All right, there it is. So here's our command. We'll try it again. It says, warning, it's dangerous to run a coding agent outside of the repo. Yes, that's fine with me. So here it goes, it's thinking. It's using the new 04 mini model to try and figure this out. Okay, so it's saying, allow this command. Should I allow this command? Let's just say yes. Why not? I'm not sure what it is trying to do. Add some, oh, it's trying to update the file, right? We'll just let it do that. I don't see why not. just kind of letting it do what it wants to do, I guess. Okay. So let's see what it says. It says, okay, great. I added a date picker. And it says if I run this code, it'll now show the date picker. So let's try it out. All right, let me get my window open here. Let's see what it tried to do, if it tried to do anything. Doesn't seem like it's working. In fact, okay, so they did get the date. That's pretty good. But if we run this, oh, okay, it says no module named Taipy. That's a little weird. Okay, let's deactivate Conda. Sometimes that can be the problem. No module name Taipy. I wonder if I have to reinstall. Wow, so interesting. I wonder what happened here. Okay, Kanishk is getting the same error. Okay, I'm not getting that error anymore. Definitely try to do pip list and see if you have Taipy installed, Kanishk. That could be the problem. I wonder what I'm getting now, though. I'm getting kind of a different issue. None type object is not callable. That's what it's telling me. All right, I'm gonna tell Codex about this error. Hopefully, it will help me. I'm just gonna tell it about this error. Maybe it'll give me some advice. I can see that I can see that it got some dates going. That was great. But not sufficient. Not sufficient for a fully functional app, unfortunately. That would be great, but alas. Oh, I actually saw an always give access. I should do that next time, so I don't have to keep pushing yes every time. Come on, Codex, think. Takes a while to think, it seems. Can't possibly have run out of money. I only did, basically only did one run. Okay, keep going. I wonder what it said to do here. So it's saying begin a patch. Okay, so so it's adding to the input nodes. That's important. Okay, it's saying it ran. So let's see if it works. All right, it says let me know if it works. That's really funny. Okay, so let's go back to our VS Code and see what happened here. This is pretty cool. I mean, I have to admit, this is really cool. Okay, so we get a yellow in our VS Code, and yellow means that there was an edit. So we already saw that, Codex added this input date, and we can now see that it added this date here to the scenario. So we'll save it. It's already been saved actually. So all we have to do is write this Taipy tutorial command in terminal. I'll show this to y'all. Share the screen. All right, so let's refresh the page, see if it made any update. All right, awesome. So it did make an update. So let's see what happens if I hit submit. Hello, Adam Smith, your selected date. Here's your selected date. Okay, that's pretty cool. What should we try next? I mean, does anyone have an idea? What should we try to build next with this codex? You can add some more controls. You have the list. I'll paste it in the chat. And if there's anything in this list that you want to see us try and implement, let us know. We still have about 20 minutes left in our workshop. So that's plenty of time to work on something. By the way, while I'm waiting for y'all to think of some idea, why don't we hear about what the next stream is going to be? Huh? So the next stream is going to be Intro to GraphQL Part 2. And this is with Alberto. And I will send the link as well. Okay, bar graph. Yeah, we can make a bar graph, but bar graph of what? What should we make a bar graph of? Let's add a bar graph in. So also I should check my my usage. See how much money we've spent so far, so that I don't get. Okay, so that cost was. Let's see what the cost was of that. Okay, so that cost 15 cents. 15 cents. Okay, so that wasn't too bad to make a little date there. All right, so yeah, sure. Let's make some bar graphs. So I'm gonna go back into the terminal. I'm gonna tell Codex that worked. Amazing work, Codex. That got the date going. Now, I want you to make a bar graph showing, what should we show? Maybe we should make a graph showing where in the year the selected date falls. Okay, I also want you to make a a separate page on this website shows the goals per season by a soccer player. Why not? That's kind of the idea, so let's try it. For now, you can use made-up data, but eventually, well, and then maybe we'll see. That's a little ambitious, maybe, for it to use real data, but let's just see if it can get this right for us. And we'll go over what it's doing too. Okay, we can give it permission to make this change. Let's see what it did. Oh, it's already doing more stuff. Looks like it updated the file and added a few things here. So, oh, it's making a pie chart for the initial date. And the chart, remember we need one of these controls for Taipy. So it's going to make a new control for that. Let's keep going here. Looks like it's making that goals per season for the soccer players. And this is a chart object, so it's going to have an X value, a Y value, some title to it. So yeah, it's so easy for it to just add new controls in and things like that. We gave it a template too, which is really huge. All right, so it says it's done. So I'm going to try to do this. So go back to our app. We're going to refresh. And it looks like we got an error. I'm going to copy the error in to our codex. I'm going to see if there was some other stuff that it outputted to the terminal. I can see it outputted a big mess of stuff to the terminal. So let's copy all that inside into the console too. All right, so I pasted that error in, and I'm going to paste the rest of the error in too. And we'll see what Codex thinks of this. Yeah, as I was saying, GraphQL 2 Part 2 is up next with Alberto, so have a look at that. Why not? Could be a really good time. I'll hit the yes to accept that. Keep going along here. All right, says we could try again, so let's try again. All right, so I'll pull up our window again. We had this error. Let's refresh. Okay, that's not very good. Let's try again. Okay, it's not working on this, but it actually is working on Google Chrome. So I'm going to show you all what Google Chrome looks like right now. It's funny enough, it actually is working pretty decently so far on Google Chrome. So there it is. So I'm going to put in, I put in the 415, or so it's actually 416 now for me. Oh boy, 416. Yep. So hit submit. Tells me how many days have passed. So 106 days have passed and 259 remain, I guess. And then here's another thing, goals per season of the soccer player. Interestingly, for these types of things with Taipy, you can actually zoom in. So that's built into Taipy, which is pretty cool. You can see in this top right corner here, it says produced with Plotly here. So that's kind of interesting to note. Now I'm afraid there are a few issues here. So I'm just going to copy the page here. It's almost ready. It's almost working. I'm going to paste those in to Taipy or to Codex. See if maybe it can't help me figure this out, what the issue might be. Yeah, definitely allow. Allow it all. See how much burn we have so far on this. So we've now almost spent 50 cents. And it says we should now see a working 2-tap interface. So let's see if we do. Oh, wow. It says we have access denied, actually. I'm going to see if we can fix that. That's not good. Okay, I thought for a long time there about what to do. Hopefully it fixed the problem. All right, let's see. So we can go to this page for the home page, and then we can go to stats for the stats page. So that's cool. All right, I actually got another error. I tried to run that, so let's type the error in. I notice it does tend to get stuck a little bit here, and we're not even asking for something huge. Which is interesting because Taipy, it is somewhat of a smaller library, so there's definitely not as much training data for the models. That could be what's impacting this performance so dramatically. All right, looks like we're getting towards the end here. Hopefully it works this time. You never know. All right, so we'll try it out. Seems to be working, but I won't get my hopes up too much. Okay, it looks pretty good. So if I submit our day today, it's past 106 days so far, 259 left. That's pretty good. I can put my name here, Steven. That you selected is 416. I could select another day. It adjusts those. Actually, it doesn't adjust those, interestingly. If I click view stats, it doesn't do much either. But and here's our goals per season. So pretty cool, honestly, that it's able to spin that up for us. And if we want to take a deep dive into the code, which we'll do with our last few minutes here, and see what it actually wrote, we can have a look at this. So here's some data that it fed in, just some random data. And then here's some of the changes to the layout. So there's a change to this pie data. So they put this chart in, this control chart. the chart type being a pie chart, they actually, I don't think that quite happened. We didn't quite make it into a pie chart. That's all right. And then we also had all of these other things run, which are pretty cool. It wrote the date as a new node. And it actually added another page here too to the GUI, or tried to. So kind of cool. It can sort of get you started in your project, and maybe then you can refine it a little bit with your expert knowledge. But that pretty much is what I wanted to cover today. So I'll just give you all a quick idea for another thing to implement. On your own. And this is called the formality toggle switch. So remember, toggle switch was one of the things we could do in Taipy. And this formality switch could, maybe if it's turned on, it could say greetings, Stephen. And if it's not on, it could say hello, Stephen. So try to implement this on your own using what we learned in this course. And you could also try using your own LLM to help maybe get you some of the way there. But yeah, this pretty much calls it for today. And I'll just paste the slides one more time because that is so good to have. And if you want the solution, so this is the solution. It's right here. Okay, so go ahead and try that out on your own when you get some time. But that'll call it for today. And don't forget that there is a GraphQL Part 2 coming up with Alberto. So please try to head to that next. See you all later. And thanks for joining for Taipy. It was a really good time. And we got some amazing participation. Thanks, Kanishk. Thanks for joining, and thanks for your ideas. They were really fun. All right, see you, everybody.